the Stack Shack dashboard allows you to see a bunch of details relating to stacks and your stacking positions. So over here we just describe the methodology with price. So really what we do is within the different cycles, we then use an average of the price in order to determine how much stacks is locked up in US dollars, as well as how much Bitcoin is paid out in US dollars. So yeah, you can see the current price of stacks is $3.09, Bitcoin's at 73,000, and currently we're in the 80th stack cycle. So within the last cycle, in cycle 79, we've estimated that about 3.8 million US dollars was paid out in the last cycle. And yeah, you can see the Bitcoin price chart, and you can also see the stacks price chart. If you then go down here, what we've done is, we've said that we believe this data is correct, but we're looking for independent people to analyze it and to question us. We want to have people analyze this data to make sure that as many people as possible independently verify it. It's complex data sets, and it's getting data from a lot of different places, so the more people that test it, the better for us in terms of making sure that we can make this as accurate as possible for the community. If you look under here, the Stacking Stacks APR, really what this does is it goes through all the cycles and it looks at the total amount of stacked in US dollars. Okay, so 189 million for cycle 59, and it looks at the total Bitcoin rewards paid out. So this is what I mentioned earlier about the average prices. So we use the average price between the dates within the cycle 59 to determine the US dollar value of the stacks and the US dollar value of the Bitcoin that was paid out. We then annualize that to get a yearly return, and then we do that for every cycle. So you can see how the annualized return is calculated per cycle, and over here we include an audit trail. So this is where we really want people to go through and kind of independently verify their results. So if you look here, if you open up here, you can open this filter, and if you can apply filters across this. So at the moment this is looking at cycle 79, so all of this data, but if you wanted to verify information from cycle 63, you could apply that, and all of the data here would be updated based upon those cycles. If you wanted to export the data, you can export it. So I think you might only need to be able to export it on the default, but there is generally an export functionality there to export it into Excel. And then if you want to verify your own address, so let's say you wanted to come in with your address, your stacks address, and you wanted to see the transactions that apply to your address, you could come in here, paste your stacks address, and here you can see that it's actually filtered according to that address. So you can see this address, okay, was Stacking Stacks, so it's a solo stacker. So what you got to understand is there's solo stackers, then there's stackers that delegate, and then obviously on Bitcoin these are the transactions paid by miners. So again, you can see that this wallet over here stacks, and for 6 cycles. So they wanted to start stacking how much? And they 413,000 stacks. They stacked from cycle 64 for 6 cycles. So if you look at that, there's the 6 cycles where they've stacked that amount of money, and then you can see the average stack price from that stacker, as well as then the calculation of the US dollars they committed. If we remove that and we start looking at the Bitcoin miners, the actual stacks miners that commit Bitcoin to pay, if we look there, we can see that on block height 773158, this particular Bitcoin address committed, how much is that, 149,000 satoshis in cycle 51 at an average Bitcoin price of 23,000, and they committed $34 at that exchange rate to be paid to stackers. If we then remove that again, we'll get all of our data back. This data will be, if you don't include a cycle here, these records will probably time out. Like you can see there's 500 columns or pagination. So what you really want to do is, if you want to look at these 2 tables, I'd recommend you to always just choose a particular cycle. Otherwise, because of the amount of data, it can get a bit overwhelming, and it might not have all of the records within the table. And there you can see, so there's a tool that you can use in order to determine how everything's going within your stacking.